Today's episode is on Samskaras, the subliminal impressions formed from your habitual thought and emotional patterns. Hello, welcome to episode 2.
There's our blanket, excellent.
Asymmetrical dropping and sinking.
Notice how so just notice
Joining us for the second episode next week. Namaste. Namaste. Welcome to episode 77 of Namaste Yoga. Today's class is going to be on the Samskaras, but just before we do that, I wanted to share some emails that I've received from our viewers and participants. The first one comes from Kelly Ann, and this is in response to a couple of weeks ago we did an episode on the kleshas. And she says, I love this class, Dr. West. You spoke to me on such a deeper level. Felt like a spring cleaning for the body, mind, and soul. Your classes always refresh and invigorate me, but this one I greatly needed. Blessings and namaste. So thank you, Kelly Ann. And I also received another one that I want to read you, just a couple of short ones today. So this one is from Candace, and she says, thank you so much for doing your yoga podcast. They really help me after I have a long day and after my basketball practices. I used to live in Toronto, and knowing your classes take place there make me feel even better and a little emotional me being from there and missing it. So thanks again. So love that, Candace, who used to be from Toronto. We love Toronto. It's such a great city to live in. So many great things going on in the yoga community, and the vegetarian and vegan communities here are incredible too. So great place to live. Also, we're starting each episode with a book recommendation because my aparigraha, my non-hoarding, does not extend to books. So this week's is by a Toronto author and yoga teacher. His name is Michael Stone. He's an incredible teacher, I think one of the best on the planet right now. And this book is called The Inner Tradition of Yoga. And so there happens to be an entire chapter in this book on the Samskaras that we'll draw from, not entirely for this episode, but definitely his teachings were helpful for me putting together this episode. So The Inner Tradition of Yoga, he has 2 other books as well that are both very good as well. But this is his first one, and I really like this one. So definitely look into that as well. Okay, so you can go ahead and rest back, start lying on your back, and we'll go into the teachings for today to begin. So the samskaras are subliminal impressions. Our thoughts and feelings form these kind of clusters of habitual patterns and tendencies and potentialities. And the samskaras, they come together by the constant churning of your thoughts and emotions. And what happens is that our habits and our tendencies become set. And then the pattern of the habit is difficult to change. So our thoughts and feelings are trained by habits and flow in these predictable patterns. And these patterns are quite often really ingrained. And Nischala Joy Devi says, constant identification with these patterns form our belief system, kind of a blueprint for our lives. When a thought, feeling, or situation arises, it will naturally flow into the groove that presents the path of least resistance. So as you rest back, just become curious about what beliefs have formed patterns and habits for you. So in our practice, we can relinquish our old mindless habits, the samskaras, by intentionally choosing what to invite into our bodies, our minds, our hearts, and our lives. So the way we're going to work with your samskaras today is to intentionally use breath practice and yoga asana, yoga postures, to create new pathways in your body and to free up the flow of energy. So if you think about it, in your body, there are 72,000 nadis, energy pathways in your body. And these samskaras, some of them are more well-traveled, and so the grooves are deeper and energy flows along those lines more easily. Then there are some places that there are blockages. And what we do by practicing yoga is begin to create new pathways to free up the energy movement in the body so that new grooves are created. And we do this by practicing pranayama, breath practice, also by doing yoga asana. And today we're going to specifically use mudras to create a new imprint in your body. But first we're going to start with the pranayama breath practice. And this breath practice is called square breath. So you can do it while you're lying on your back. It can be nice to do this with your knees bent and your feet flat on the floor. You may even want to place your hands on your belly. So take a deep breath in through your nose and let it fall out through your mouth. And the only contraindications for this breath practice would be for people for whom holding your breath is not safe. So if that's the case, then just keep your breath continuous. So I'm thinking that perhaps that wouldn't be safe for people with high blood pressure or people who are pregnant. Not a great idea to hold your breath. So if you know you have a medical condition that precludes you from holding your breath, then just keep your breath continuous. On the parts where the rest of us are holding, you can keep your breath continuous. Take a normal breath in and a normal breath out. And then breathe in, pause, breathe out, pause, 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 breathe in, pause, breathe out, pause. Good, and then return to breathing normally and feel the effect of this breath practice in your body and your mind, your emotions. So to me, when I practice this breath practice, it's to me like hitting a reset button. And so we're working on the samskaras because sometimes those samskaras can feel like a rut that we get into, that that sometimes it just feels like you can't get out of them. And so to practice a breath practice like that, for me, just really helps to smooth things over and create a fresh start. So that's why I chose that breath today. Okay, so stay lying on your back, and you're going to keep your knees bent and your feet flat on the floor. And we're going to do a practice here. A lot of times you can see samskaras in the way people hold their bodies. And one of the really common samskaras is this kind of rounding, lifted shoulders, this really protected position, which is so common in our culture because we sit at desks all day long and all our work is in front of us. And we don't do a lot of bending backwards, mostly rounding forward. So just as you lie on your back here, be aware of how your shoulders feel in relationship to the ground. And then we'll practice a little vinyasa series, and you'll see how that will change the habitual holding pattern in your body. So begin by holding on to your elbows here. Let your shoulders be heavy. And then inhale in the center. Exhale, roll your head to the right and lower your elbows to the right. Inhale, center. Exhale, roll your elbows to the left and lower your head to the left. And go back and forth. And then bring your head back center. And exhale, leave your head in the center, lower your elbows over to the right. Inhale, center. Breathe out, lower your elbows over to the left. Breathe in, center. Then bring your head back center, your elbows, I mean. See, there's an example of the samskara. When I'm teaching, there are these habitual ways of saying things, and so they come up unconsciously without even thinking about them. And so that's kind of a perfect example of what we're talking about here today. Okay, so now your elbows go to the right and your head rolls to the left. Inhale, center. Exhale, elbows to the left, head rolls to the right. And then bring your head and your elbows back to the center. Lower your arms down and just check in with your shoulders here in particular. And notice how that held pattern in your body has changed. So the very act of practicing your yoga changes these habitual holding patterns, in this case in your physical body. Okay, so today we're going to need a strap. I'm sorry I didn't tell you that at the beginning. So go ahead and pause the video and get yourself a strap if you need one. And what we're going to do is pick up the strap. And what I want you to do is just notice what your mind tells you about what's going to happen when I ask you to get a strap. So notice how ingrained these habits are, these patterns are. So probably already know what I'm going to ask you to do. So you're going to hook up your right foot. Now, before you bring your right leg in, just notice what you're telling yourself about what's going to happen in your right leg. So before you even experience what's happening in your right leg, you've already formed an opinion of what's going to happen. And so these are our samskaras. And so this time when you come to the pose, see if you can come to it as if you're really experiencing it for the first time rather than knowing what's going to happen with it. So go ahead and open up the back of your right leg. You can have your left leg bent here. I think I'm going to keep my left leg bent today. So a habitual way of doing this for me would be to extend my left leg. But today I'm going to try something a little different and do it with my left knee bent. And notice how that creates freshness of experience here. Okay, so release your left leg out straight on the ground and open your right leg out to the side. So let me give you an example of a samskara here. Every night when I drive out to my yoga classes in Whitby, I used to go on the highway, on a really, really busy highway here in Toronto called the 401. And so this became a habit, to get on the highway and to drive at a really high speed on the highway to get to yoga class. And then I got to thinking about taking the highway every day. And I decided that I didn't want to take the highway to yoga class because it was too rushed a pace. I was driving fast, more likelihood of getting in a car accident. And if I did get in a car accident, it would be at a higher speed. So I brought some awareness to this habitual pattern of driving to yoga class. And I decided to instead take a much slower road down by the lake. So now I take Bailey across to my yoga classes, and it's a much slower ride. And so you can see there, and it's a ride that invites a lot more reflection. I drive by a conservation area, a body of water. It's a really pretty ride now. And so you can see how bringing awareness to our samskaras, maybe kind of the ruts that we travel in, that we can make different choices that serve us better. Okay, and then bring your right leg back center. And notice what you're telling yourself about how it's going to feel when you begin to cross it over your body. And see if you can come to it and be curious about how it really is right now instead of how you tell yourself about how it's going to be. So this series is traditionally a body mudra series. Some really flexible yogis here are actually able to do this whole series while holding onto their big toe. So that it creates an energetic seal and creates a new imprint, a new energetic pathway. But for most of us, we'll work with the strap and create that energetic seal that way. Okay, and then you can release your right leg to the ground. And notice what you expect to happen, and then be curious instead about what's actually happening this time. Okay, so you can go ahead and hook up your left leg, and as you do that, be curious about what you tell yourself about how this side is going to be. So we have definite ideas and expectations about how the left side of our body is and the right side of our body is. And notice how awareness of what's happening sometimes flows into judgment about what's happening, and creates value on one side over the other. And then expectation around how it might be the next time. This is kind of how samskaras develop. So open your left leg out to the side. And then bring your leg back center. And become aware of, as you transition, the habitual routes you take in and out of poses. And be curious about how many habitual patterns you have in your day-to-day life too. So sometimes habitual patterns can really serve you, and then sometimes we need to build awareness around them and choose better patterns. So I'll give you another example. In the mornings, I was making these really super delicious gluten-free vegan chocolate chip banana pancakes for breakfast for my daughter. And they were so good, I started eating them every morning too. And it became a habit. We had them every single day. And over time, I realized that eating these pancakes every morning wasn't really serving me. It served my mouth really well. It tasted super yummy. But it didn't necessarily fuel me properly for the day. And so I decided instead to start making green smoothies, or should I say go back to making green smoothies for myself in the morning. So that's an example of, well, actually, how easy it is to move out of a good habit into a bad habit, and then to recognize the bad habit and to move back to a good habit. Okay, and then release this leg and slowly lower it down. Okay, so bring to mind a samskara that is present for you in your life, and imagine it like a groove or kind of like a rut. And so I often think of it like little rivers with water running through them, and the deeper the groove, the more likely the water is going to flow that way. So let's do bridge pose now. We're going to make a mudra in this pose by taking your hands behind your head. And I have to say that I found all the body mudras for this class in Gertrude Hershey's book on mudras, which I recommended at the beginning of last episode, I believe. So you're going to press down through your feet and lift your pelvis up off the ground. And so you can think of this as a metaphorical bridge. So when you discover a samskara, what you can do is create a bridge over it, and then begin to travel across the bridge rather than through the rut. And then you can slowly lower down and draw your knees into your chest. And be curious about what's happening now in your body and with your breath. And feel how different pathways are being opened in your physical body and your energetic body. Okay, so release your legs to the ground. And you can either rock yourself up or you can roll to your side and come onto all fours. Okay, so come onto all fours with your hands underneath your shoulders and your knees underneath your hips. Breathe out and round up through your back. And then breathe in and arch your back. And move back and forth through these as a way to warm up your spine for today's practice. And then place your hands slightly forward of your shoulders, tuck your toes under, reach your sit bones up towards the ceiling, and exhale, reach your hips up into downward facing dog. And then walk your feet into your hands and make your way up to standing. From standing, bring your hands into prayer position. So this will be our mudra here, joining your hands at your heart center. And so to me, this creates a shift in samskara. I mean, we tend to run around, at least I do anyway, really busy in our minds. So I think of a samskara that's kind of continually running through my mind as this idea maybe that I don't have enough time, I've got too much to do and not enough time. And so this becomes my reality, this becomes my kind of rut that I fall into, this kind of groove that I believe that I don't have enough time for everything that I need to do. And so by bringing awareness to these samskaras, practicing yoga, choosing a different thought can help to really shift them for you so that you have a new groove. And so for me, that new groove might be, I have more than enough time to finish everything I need to do. So from standing, let's bring our hands to prayer position at our heart. And we're going to do a simple vinyasa here. Just inhale, sit back. Look up at your hands and exhale, come back up to standing. Inhale, sit back. Exhale, come up to standing. Remember your bandhas. Mula bandha, draw up through your pelvic floor. Uddiyana bandha, draw your navel back to your spine. Jalandhara bandha, chin tucks. The Maha bandha, the great bandha. Okay, so then from here we're going to practice some inversions. So the first one, you'll come down to kneeling. And from kneeling, you're going to place your head on the ground. So this pose is really significant before we go into it. This pose is really significant, I think, because a lot of times we're ruled by our head. And this is where these kind of samskaras, these continual thoughts, go again and again and again and begin to create these grooves. So in this pose, we lower our heads below our hearts as a way of symbolically submitting our head to our heart so that we are going into a surrender position, letting go of this constant monkey mind. So you can place the crown of your head on the ground and just be really careful if you have any neck injuries, exercise caution. You could choose to keep your hands on the ground to support yourself here. And if it feels safe, you can bring your hands around behind you and interlace your fingers. Roll your shoulders back and up, and then lift your arms up. And then to come out of this pose, lower your arms. Take your hands and place them on either side of your head. Press into your hands and lift your head up off the ground. Okay, so let's create another mudra with our bodies. We'll start with legs up the wall for this one. So you can move your mat so that it's perpendicular to the wall. Sit down at the edge of your mat with your hips right up against the wall. And then swing your legs around and up the wall. Okay, so you could choose to stay here in this pose. If you do, you can create a mudra, a seal, by placing your hands somewhere on your body. This is another inversion where you need to be careful with your neck depending on your history. So exercise caution. You can bend your knees and place your feet flat on the wall. And then press into your feet and roll your spine up off the ground. So once you get up, it seems like there's no good spot for this mic right now. Once you get up, you're going to walk your elbows underneath you and your hands up your back. So keep your head in the center and pay attention to the feedback from your neck. So you might choose to stay here. Or if you can take one leg off the wall without kicking, you can go ahead and do that. Or maybe you can take both legs off the wall without kicking, then you can go ahead and do that. So shoulder stand creates this seal in your body where your hands are connecting to your back. And also I think the thing that's really great about shoulder stand when we're working with the Samskaras is that it turns things right upside down. So you get to experience things from a different perspective rather than from your habitual perspective, upside right. Okay, so then you can bend your knees and slowly bring your feet back to the wall. And then slowly roll down through your spine, bone by bone by bone. And place your legs up the wall. Take a deep breath in here. And let it fall out of your mouth. So our samskaras are really helpful because although they're quite often unconscious and part of our shadow, they can teach us a lot when we bring them into our awareness. Okay, so bend your knees and roll to your side and make your way onto lying on your belly. So I'm thinking about another samskara that I brought some awareness to recently. And this is that when things aren't really going my way, or when I'm upset by things, or something's kind of irritating, I say, "Oh, what a pain in the butt." And once I notice I say that, I say it a lot. And then I notice that not only do I say it, my husband says it a lot too. Say pain in the butt. We also say pain in a word that starts with an A lot. And so this creates a pattern in our bodies. And so I think it's probably no real surprise too that I also quite often have a pain in my butt. And so I've been really working with that one and noticing when I say it and trying to choose something different to say. But it's really hard to try and choose a different one for that one because, it's really, what do I want to say that's irritating and then create all this irritation in my life? So I'm really working on that one. If you have any suggestions, I'm open. Okay, we're going to come onto your back and we're going to practice a back bend now. So here, in our day-to-day life, we fold forward thousands and thousands of times a day. It's a ridiculous number of times that we fold forward. But we never fold backwards, or we only fold backwards a few times a day. And so in our yoga practice, we create the opposite by folding backwards, rather than doing this continual folding forward, which creates this rut in our bodies that you can see in the way we hold our bodies in our culture. So the way we're going to do this today is you're going to place your hands on either side of your body, palms down. You'll roll your shoulders back and up, press the front of your pelvis into the ground, draw up through your pelvic floor, Mula Bandha, draw your navel back to your spine, Uddiyana Bandha, and then you're going to inhale and lift your chest up off the ground, Jaladharan Bandha, chin tug. Okay, so slowly lower down, take your hands on your shoulders, push yourself up and back into child's pose. So in our day-to-day life, by continually folding forward, we create this muscular pattern on our bodies of our back muscles being really long and weak, and our muscles along the front of our body, our chest in particular, being really short and tight. And so by bringing awareness to this, we can practice back bends to help create a new pattern in our body, and we strengthen and shorten the muscles in the back of our body. From here, come up to sitting. In your seated position, cross your legs, and you could choose to use a cushion here. Lengthen up through your spine. You're going to inhale here. Exhale, turn your torso to your left. Take your right hand to the outside of your left knee. Your left hand to the base of your spine. And look over your left shoulder. Looking into your past. And all those habitual thought patterns and feelings and actions that have created the person and life, the person that you are today and the life that you live today. So just become curious and aware of all those samskaras from the past that have created your present. And then turn back to the center. Take a deep breath in. And let it fall out of your mouth. Lengthen up through your spine again. And turn to your right. Take your left hand to the outside of your right knee. Right hand to the base of your spine. Lengthen up through your spine. And looking over your right shoulder, look symbolically into your future. And ask yourself, what samskaras can you consciously create in your life? And what kind of a future will that create for you? And then come back to center. So we're going to finish with a series of hand-body mudras today. And I'll show all four of them to you, and then we'll go through them. And I'm going to share some insights from both orbs on the samskaras as you sit with these today. So the first one is you place your hands in an L shape. And then you rest them at the base of your rib cage. Shoulders relaxed, chest open. And then the second one is you take your thumbs and you place them in your armpits at the top of your rib cage. The third one is you take your fingertips on your upper back. So this one can be kind of not fun if you have really tight shoulders. So if that's the case, then you can do this one here in child's pose instead. And then the final mudra in this series is like a steeple mudra, except instead of the index finger extending, you're going to extend the middle finger and your thumbs. Okay, and then you're going to place your middle fingers at the top of your breastbone and your thumbs at the bottom. Okay, so let's start at the beginning with your hands in the L shape and place them at the base of your rib cage. So both Forbes that says that repeating samskaras reinforces them, creating a groove that's difficult to resist. But what we can do is exchange our negative samskaras for positive ones. And she has a bunch of things that we can do to help us do that. So the first one is sankalpa, and we did a whole class on that you can go back to in the series if you haven't done it. But sankalpa means intention. So what it does, when we set an intention, it communicates what we want to our emotional and spiritual bodies. And it can act as a guiding sutra or thread that we weave through our yoga practice, both on and off the mat. The second thing that Bo Forbes recommends to create a positive sankalpa, to create a positive samskara, is tapas. And tapas are the discipline required for change. So in order to resist falling back into our old habits, we can do things like committing to a daily practice or abstaining from negative thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. Take your hands and move them up to the top of your rib cage, thumbs reaching into your armpits, elbows parallel to the ground, shoulders relaxed. The next thing that Bo Forbes recommends in creating a positive samskara is to slow down. When you slow down, you can become aware of your patterns. And then as she says, she recommends awareness so that we see clearly. And when we bring awareness to our thoughts, our words, and our actions, it really helps us to recognize the samskaras that are present. And then we can begin to ask ourselves, what does this pattern have to tell me? What can I learn from this pattern? Rather than, why is this happening to me? So through awareness, our samskaras can become great teachers. Take your hands and bring them onto your upper back, elbows pointing up. Remember, you can take this position in child's pose. Bo Forbes also says we need to rely on the fearlessness of the warrior when we practice samskaras, when we practice creating new ones. So sometimes fear of the new and different and change keeps us from changing. Better the devil that we know than the devil that we don't, as the saying goes. So by practicing postures like warrior, we can become fearless and face the unknown. And through our yoga practice, we can have vision. We can have a vision for what it is that we want to create in our life, and then create conscious patterns and habits that help us to fulfill them. Okay, and then bring your arms down and around. Make that steeple mudra with your middle finger and thumb extended. Rest your middle finger at the top of your breastbone, your thumb at your bottom. So finally, it takes practice. If we are to reinforce a new groove, it takes practice. And the more we practice, the stronger it becomes. We create a new groove rather than falling into those old habitual patterns. So shifting samskara is the ongoing work of chipping away at our negative patterns to illuminate the purity of our souls. And Bo Forbes says that our ability to shift our patterns once we've sown the seeds is self-generating self-sustaining, and self-renewing. When we practice yoga, we make ourselves soft like wax so that we can participate in creating the landscape of ourselves. Bring your hands to prayer position. You can finish your practice with 5 to 10 minutes of Shavasana. Thank you for joining us for episode 77 of Namaste Yoga. Be sure to friend us on Facebook and leave your comments there about how you're integrating Namaste Yoga into your life. Namaste.